JBN, we keep you informed. I am Michelle Jones, and in the news, JCF mourns death of cop killed in St. Elizabeth motor vehicle accident. The Jamaica Constabulary Force JCF has been plunged into mourning following Tuesday's death of a police constable from injuries he sustained in a motor vehicle accident in St. Elizabeth 5 months ago. The deceased has been identified as O'Shane Higgins of the St. Elizabeth Police Division. Reports are that on July 14, Constable Higgins was a passenger in a private motor vehicle driven by his colleague when he crashed on Central Road in Black River. He was reportedly on his way to a probationer's exam at the time of the crash. Both policemen were taken to hospital, where Higgins was admitted while his colleague was treated and released. We mourn with the commanding officer and staff, friends and family, the JCF said in a message announcing Higgins' death. JC teacher dies of COVID-related illness. The Jamaica College family is mourning the loss of a member of their staff who succumbed to illness. The deceased is Giovanni Baxter, a teacher of visual arts and the grade 9 year supervisor. In a release, Wayne Robinson, acting principal of Jamaica College, stated that students and staff are devastated at the loss. Mr. Baxter succumbed to a sudden illness, which seemed to be a combination of gastroenteritis, dehydration, and COVID-related issues, Robinson said. He added, "We pray for his family, friends, and the Jamaica College community. May his soul rest in peace." Bus conductor gets life for killing 7-year-old girl. A St. Catherine bus conductor who pleaded guilty to the murder of a 7-year-old girl was sentenced to life imprisonment in the St. Catherine Circuit Court yesterday. He is Vivian Vernon of Portmore Villa, St. Catherine. That is Kadisha Cousins, a student of Waterford Primary School in the parish. In handing down the sentence, Justice Bertram Morrison said the crime was premeditated, heinous and barbaric, which a punishment must reflect. He told the accused, who stood stoic in the dock, that justice must be served for the victim. The judge said that those like-minded should be discouraged from such wicked acts. Justice Morrison said that Jamaica was suffering from criminality, therefore, the sentence must reflect that the public was hurt by it. He said although the Criminal Justice Administration Act allows that having pleaded guilty, the accused may benefit from a reduction in sentence, Vernon's case was not applicable. The public would not be satisfied if you benefit from a reduction in sentence, since you have a prior conviction for violence and there is premeditation and the aggravation is more than the mitigating circumstances, Morrison said. He then sentenced Vernon to 2 years and 11 months for arson and life imprisonment for murder. According to reports, on November 5, 2014, after burning down the house of his girlfriend, the child's mother, Vernon killed the 7-year-old Waterford student and dumped her body in the Rio Cobre. He was subsequently arrested and charged with murder after several items, including the child's identification card, were found in his possession. Vernon pleaded guilty to arson and murder while in court earlier this year. He was represented by attorney at law Denise Inson, who cited provocation as a reason for Vernon's actions. St. Catherine man accused of murder pleads guilty to gun charges. A St. Catherine man who was recently captured after being on the run for almost 2 years in connection with a 2020 murder has pleaded guilty to gun charges and was remanded for sentencing on February 2. Dennis Mondle on Friday pleaded guilty to prohibited weapon and dealing in prohibited weapon following the siege of a farm during an operation at a premises in St. Catherine on December 2. A woman, Celine Clark, who was found at the premises, was also arrested and similarly charged but was granted $300,000 bail. She is to return to court on February 20. The 38-year-old man, who is also known as Ginseng of Spanish Town Road, Kingston 13, was also charged with murder. According to police reports, about 2:20 p.m. on Christmas Day in 2020, 21-year-old Romaine Atkinson was assisting a neighbor with dinner at Tawari Crescent, Kingston 13, when Mondle and another man approached and opened gunfire, hitting Atkinson multiple times to the head and upper body. Mondle escaped and was on the run until the time of his capture. The court date is not yet set for the murder case. 4 men charged following deadly supermarket robbery in Porus. Criminal charges have been laid against the 4 men who were apprehended by the police after a deadly robbery at a supermarket in Porus, Manchester, earlier this month. They have been each charged with possession of a prohibited weapon, trafficking a prohibited weapon, and stockpiling a prohibited weapon. The charges fall under Jamaica's newly enacted Firearms Act. The men's names have not been released because of other investigations that are ongoing, the police explained. They were held in Williamsfield, Manchester, after the car in which they were travelling was intercepted by the police. An AK-47 rifle, 2 handguns, several rounds of ammunition, and a police ballistic vest were allegedly found in the car. The arrest came minutes after 4 armed men robbed a supermarket located along the porous main road. The robbers reportedly opened fire after stealing an undetermined sum of cash. Jin Sing-hee, the proprietor of the supermarket, and a man identified as Alfonso Cohen, otherwise called Kushai, were killed in the attack. Justice system let us down. The family of the Jamaica College student who was murdered in 2016 said they were crushed by Tuesday's Court of Appeal decision to shave 11 years off the 31-year prison term his killer was ordered to serve before being considered for parole. We are hurt, we are sad, we are upset. We are all the adjectives that you can think of. We believe in the justice system, but it let us down today, Wesley Harris, grandfather of the victim, said. Xavier Francis, an obviously distraught father of the victim, was also distressed. 20 years. My son never get to spend 15 years on the earth, and him to come back out in at 20? That can't be fair at all. We weren't even happy with the 31 years. No, this is even worse, Francis said. 14-year-old Nicholas Francis died after he was stabbed in the chest on October 26, 2016, during an altercation on a bus with his killer, Kwesi Hart, following an attempt to steal the teen's watch. Hart later pleaded guilty before the start of the trial in 2019 and was sentenced to life in prison. The sentencing judge, Lorna Shelley Williams, had ordered Hart to serve 31 years in prison before being considered eligible for parole. The judge started at 40 years but had reduced the pre-parole sentence after crediting Hart with 10% discount for his guilty plea and for the 3 years that he spent in custody. Calculations or mitigating and aggravating factors were also factored. Hart, however, appealed his sentence on the grounds that it was manifestly excessive. The Court of Appeal, in allowing the appeal, found that the judge had erred in principle in arriving at the parole period. The 3-judge panel, which consisted of Justices Marva MacDonald Bishop, Vivian Harris, and Marcia Dunbar Green, ruled on Tuesday that the pre-parole sentence was excessive, erroneous, and demonstratively disproportionate. Reacting to the ruling, the father of the deceased student said he was not pleased with the decision, which he described as puzzling. I don't understand what the judges are saying now, that the first judge used the wrong formula, he said. The father recalled that the sentencing judge had assured him that she was using the correct approach to avoiding a possible appeal challenge of the sentence. She told me she couldn't do certain things because she don't want when it goes to appeal them have anything wrong, so she going by the book. She basically soothed my nerve that the 31 years before parole would be fine, based on the fact that she took off 9 years as she started at 40, he said. Now to hear that them can take off 10 more years. This is very disturbing for the family, especially for the mother who is away. This doesn't make any sense. Harris meanwhile questioned the rationality of the judge's acceptance that the sentence was excessive and harsh. When I look at what was excessive, it's the murder, not the sentence. He didn't have to kill Nicholas that day. Nicholas didn't even have a pence in his hand to defend himself, but he was killed coming from school by a hoodlum. Can you give back Nicholas 11 years? If you can, I'm in agreement with you taking off 11 years off his sentence, he said. According to Harris, the family was devastated by Nicholas's death, adding that the decision would compound their grief. We bleed for 3 years and more, and we did not expect to be bleeding again, he said. Harris also noted that the family was equally displeased that no one from the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions notified them about the appeal. Attorney at Law Patrick Peterkin argued on Monday during the appeal hearing that the judge had not factored in his client's age 21 at the time of the sentence or his remorse. He also said that the sentencing principles had not been properly applied. The lawyer said that a reasonable starting point would have been 25 years instead of 40. Acting Court of Appeal President Justice MacDonald Bishop, in handing down the ruling, agreed with Peter King's submission that the pre-parole sentence was excessive and was suitable for a convicted killer who took more than one life. The judges further found that the sentencing judge had not used the correct methodology to determine the pre-parole sentence in accordance with the guidelines. The judges pointed out that based on the circumstances of the case, the appropriate starting point would have been between the statutory minimum of 15 and 24 years, considering that the murder was not committed to effect a robbery or in the furtherance of a robbery. The panel noted that even if the applicant had committed the murder in furtherance of a robbery, the starting point of 40 years would have been too high, having regard to the statutory minimum period of 20 years for a murder of that nature. There is no justification in law or reason for a starting point of over 40 years for a murder falling within Section 2 of the Offences Against a Person Act involving a knife and one fatal wound, Justice MacDonald Bishop added. Given that the statutory minimum for capital murder is 20 years, the appellate judge said the sentencing judge would have doubled the statutory range that should be imposed in a more serious murder. She further noted that the law requires that when a person pleads guilty to murder, his life sentence should start at 30. The appeal judge emphasized that the pre-parole period should not exceed the life sentence stipulation. PM warns gunmen of harsh punishment under new Firearms Act. Prime Minister Andrew Holness on Monday announced the creation of a $50 million fund from which cash will be paid to people who provide the state with information about criminal activities. Holness shared the information during his address at the handing over ceremony of 2 houses under the new social housing program in Civil Heights, St. Anne, framing his comments against the background of the government's need to impose a state of emergency in the parish, which he said has contributed to a significant decrease in crime there. At the same time, the Prime Minister warned gun-toting young men that, under the new Firearms Act, their punishment upon conviction will be harsh.
All of those little boys running around with guns who believe that them will go in front of a judge and they will plead a case and they will go through some bargaining process and they get 6 months and come out. You're going to get 15 years minimum. Radam is also that the gangs are organizing around trying to rob business places such as supermarkets and other enterprises. They are trying to hijack shipments of goods. During the Christmas season, there's a sense that business places have a lot of cash and a lot of goods moving around and that they have quick buyers for them and they can hijack stocks that are being moved around and they can, if they hit business places, they'll get a lot of cash. And we have stopped a few of them, and you would have seen a few murders take place as a result of them, the gangs pursuing that kind of thing. And you will see the level of organization behind it, positioning cars, positioning getaway, positioning lookouts and all kinds of things. So there's a very high level of organization around it. But our intelligence is picking it up, and we are moving in on them. Slowly but surely we are getting them. But we think that the process could be assisted greatly if the people in the country would share intelligence with the police. Tell us. And sometimes there needs to be a little reward. And we have been doing that with guns. And I tell you something, we are recovering a whole lot of guns. But I'm not interested so much in the guns. I'm interested in the people using the guns. So I'm getting a report later today about how many persons we have found with illegal guns. So I'll get the report about the number of guns, but the report I'm interested in is how many people going to jail to face the new penalties under the new Firearms Act.
JBNN, we keep you informed. Please remember to subscribe, like, share, leave us a comment and click the notification bell to receive our daily news items.